Most of this class deals with markets in one form or another. And this lecture has been about how private competition maximizes efficiency. The free market solves two problems. It helps ensure that the right amount of a good is produced, so there are no shortages or surpluses. It also helps ensure that the right people get that good. This second idea is referred to by economists as allocative efficiency. But what happens if you don't have a free market? A good example of what can happen involves food banks. Food banks are local services in a neighborhood that offer food for free to residents who need it. In addition to food, they can also provide basics like diapers or soap. These food banks help fight poverty in the United States. They're a safety net in case a family has hard times and can't afford to buy food or other necessities. Feeding America is a large nonprofit that collects and distributes food to several hundred food banks across the United States. What Feeding America tries to do is to allocate food to the right places. It wants to make sure the food banks in the neediest neighborhoods get the most food, and they're getting the right mix of food. Or put another way, Feeding America is trying to do what the free market does naturally, get the right quantities of food and allocate to the right places. If this were a free market, things would be easy. Imagine Thanksgiving were coming up and there was a spike in demand for turkey. Then food banks would be willing to pay more to get turkey, and the price would go up. This would trigger turkey producers to produce more food, and that would get rid of the shortage in turkey. We also know that only food banks that wanted the turkeys most would get them, because they'd be the ones willing to pay the price. But Feeding America couldn't rely on the free market. Why? Because they couldn't force food banks to pay for the food or use prices. That would defeat the whole purpose of providing free food to the poor. Instead, Feeding America had a waiting list of food banks that needed food, and gave any new food it received to the food bank that had been waiting the longest. The result was a lot of inefficiency. Feeding America sent potatoes to a food bank in Idaho just because it happened to be next on the list, not knowing that the food bank already had a warehouse full of potatoes, which are grown nearby. There were shortages, misdirected food, frustration, and lots of hungry people. So Feeding America tried a different approach. They couldn't make food banks buy the food, but they did the next best thing. They created a virtual market for food. They gave each food bank fake money that the food banks would use to bid on food. They gave more money to the banks with the greatest need. Then, when Feeding America got a new shipment of food, it would auction the food off. Food banks could bid on the new shipment with their fake money based on their own needs. This system was enormously successful. In the 7 months after the new system took effect, the amount of food going to food banks increased by over 50 million pounds, which Feeding America thinks happened because their food was being used more efficiently. And there were some unexpected benefits. The food bank in Idaho started selling its extra potatoes to the same market because it didn't need so many. Suddenly, a food bank in Miami, desperate for potatoes, could get them easily. The right people were getting the right mix of food. What made the system so powerful is that it let each individual food bank in the market act on its own information. Each food bank director knows one piece of the puzzle: what its recipients wanted, how much food it had, and what it really needed. The virtual market let everyone put the puzzle together. Feeding America no longer had to guess at what people got fed. Free market ideas helped to make sure a lot of hungry people got what they wanted. And there's another cool aspect of this. Whose idea do you think it was to come up with this virtual market? It was an economist at the University of Chicago. Economics isn't just about factories and buying slices of pizza. It also helps us make a huge positive difference in the world.